When we talk about professional wrestling rivalries, many great feuds come to mind. Stone Cold vs. The Rock, Shawn Michaels vs. Bret Hart, Undertaker vs. Kane. But if you ask me, the rivalry between John Cena and Randy Orton stands out as the greatest rivalry of all time, because I think that it had every single ingredient that makes a rivalry unforgettable. It had history, longevity, chemistry, storytelling between the two that transcended generations. And today, that is exactly what we'll be talking about. So when we go back to the roots of this whole rivalry where it all began, it started way back than we actually thought it did. The first time these two brutes went head-to-head with one another was way before they even joined WWE. It was at a wrestling developmental called Ohio Valley Wrestling, also known as OVW. Their first ever match happened in 2001. Back during that time, John Cena was known as the Prototype, and in their first meeting, the Prototype ended up taking the win over Randy Orton. And honestly, this adds such a cool layer to the story of both of these superstars. The fact that they didn't just cross paths randomly. It felt like they were bound to face each other from the very start for their entire lifetimes. They both were in OVW as a part of the developmental, and once they finished that, they both got called up to the main roster in WWE around the same time. They were in the same ruthless aggression era, an era that shaped the future of the industry. Cena represented the hustle, loyalty, and respect of the blue-collar hero. Meanwhile, Orton was the cocky third-generation prodigy who embodied privilege and entitlement. The contrast throughout their careers was always so magnetic. From their very first encounters, from when they were young raw rumblers, all the way to the very end when they were polished professional veterans. Throughout their wrestling timeline, they have had some of the best matches that WWE has ever produced. Another one of the key elements of a rivalry in WWE or any other company, in case of professional wrestling, is longevity and evolution. One of the key elements of this rivalry is its longevity. The fact that they started way back in 2001 and they kept on going head-to-head, one-on-one, sometimes in tag matches, but mostly one-on-one, and nobody ever got bored, and neither did the rivalry ever go stale. People actually enjoyed every single time they went head-to-head, whether it was in 2002, later in 2004, around 2006 and 7 when Cena finally adapted that C-Nation superhero persona, and when Orton was slightly transitioning from being a prodigy and a youngster and a breakout talent into the legend killer, and slowly then into the Viper. With a plethora of different kinds of matches that they delivered, from Last Man Standing matches to Iron Man matches and even Hell in a Cell, as well as an I Quit match. They just never failed to deliver. What makes their feud special is how it evolved. It wasn't just one story stretched out over time that people would get bored of. It was several chapters that came together to form an epic saga. At times they were bitter enemies clashing over the WWE Championship. At other times they were forced allies, reluctantly teaming up to fight a greater threat like the Authority. At times, both of the superstars faced each other while both of them were babyfaces of WWE, while at other times, it was a classic face versus heel storyline. You just couldn't get a more heroic babyface than John Cena, or a more villainous heel than Randy Orton, especially the bald-headed 2009 Randy Orton, which we all can never forget. That guy was just a menace. So unlike rivalries that burn bright and fizzle out, Cena vs. Orton became the backbone of WWE programming for years. Instantly, the stadiums would get sold out. Another thing about this rivalry, and another reason why I feel like this is one of the greatest of all time, is the iconic matches and moments. This rivalry gave us some of the most epic matches in WWE history, which I already mentioned. Like, who can forget their brutal I Quit match at Breaking Point 2009, where Cena's resilience shone through. But that climax was just something else, and how Cena used his own disadvantage to his advantage and ended up making Orton say the words,
"Do it, I quit! Do it, I quit!"
And it's not just pay-per-view matches, even their matches on weekly episodes such as Raw and SmackDown truly delivered. Whether it was the tables match in 2010, where Randy Orton picked up the victory, or their final face-off, which happened on the 912th episode of Friday Night SmackDown in 2017, where John Cena was the World Heavyweight Champion, which was his last time holding the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, where he picked up the victory against Randy Orton in a non-title match. It was the promos, the backstage segments, the moments where you could feel the hatred between them, or even times when you could feel the respect being mutually shared between the two. Another key element about this rivalry was the contrast of styles and characters, which I already mentioned a few minutes ago. Great rivalries are built on contrast, and Cena vs. Orton was the perfect example. Cena was the hard-working underdog, the crowd pleaser, the superhero for little children all around the world, who thrived on the cheers of WWE Universe. And then there was Orton on the other hand, the calculating, venomous antagonist who thrived on dominance and mind games. Their styles inside the ring reflected their personas, an RKO out of nowhere. Fans were always divided, some rooted for Cena, the hero, while others loved Orton, the anti-hero. The division only fueled the intensity of their rivalry. And then of course, every single rivalry that transcends the TV borders and goes all around the world has its cultural impact. And Cena vs. Orton had a cultural impact that very few rivalries can claim. These two weren't just WWE superstars, they were the symbols of an era. Cena became the face of WWE, a crossover star in Hollywood and pop culture. Orton, on the other hand, became the epitome of wrestling excellence, a wrestler's wrestler who stayed true to his craft and cemented his legacy from being a legend killer to becoming a living legend. For a lot of fans, including me, who were not able to live the Attitude Era, for us growing up in the 2000s and 2010s, Cena vs. Orton was not just a feud, it was the feud. Their matches were the main event of our childhoods, the storylines we debated with friends, the moments that made us fans for life. So this is why I believe that it was the greatest rivalry of all time. It has everything. The longevity, the chemistry between the two superstars, the storytelling, the matches, the cultural significance. It wasn't just a rivalry, it was a reflection of what made wrestling great. It's larger-than-life characters colliding in a way that feels real and personal. And yes, there have been other amazing rivalries, including John Cena vs. Edge, Stone Cold vs. The Rock, or even Undertaker vs. Kane, as well as Undertaker vs. Edge, or even Brock Lesnar. But then again, to each their own. For me, Cena vs. Orton is a rivalry that stood the test of time. And I guess it's safe to say that we have reached a point where we could finally have that one final chapter to cap off this one-of-a-kind rivalry. So what do you guys think? Do you agree? Has this been one of the best rivalries of all time? Or do you have any others in mind? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn the notification bell on, just so you know exactly when